All right, here we go. So this is a weekly recap for, I believe it's week 4 of my 90 days to first payout challenge. So what I like to typically do here is at the end of every week, and I did this even before I started doing this challenge, is at the beginning of the week I set goals for the week, and at the end of the week I review those goals and find out if I hit them, if I miss them, and then I set new goals. And it's kind of like if you could imagine, climbing up a ladder, you're just going one rung at a time kind of thing, trying to get to your destination. So I'm going to take a look at that here. But I guess let's start off with the results for the week. Odd week for sure. I had a 100% win rate on the week, but it was only 2 trades. So, that's not a ton of data, but of course it's better than, any losses. I had 1 partial win on Friday. And then when I look back, I don't like the way TradeZella does this. I like TradeZella for a lot of things. I use it for collecting a lot of data, but I don't know why they don't just add this last day onto and show it here too, like, on July, to be able to see. I finished out this week on July with a trade here too, but you can see I had a trade on Tuesday and a trade on Friday. And so, yeah, let's take a look and review what I'm seeing here. So I'm going to flip over to my Discord, which is what I use for my journal. At some point, I'd love to share more. All of this is my journal. I document all of these aspects of most trading days, as well as I document my psychology, what actually happened, and performance reviews on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. And I'd be willing to argue I have one of the better trade journals in the industry. That's my one claim to fame, I guess, probably at this point. But anyways, looking at the week of July 28th. So this is what I call my general's tent. And the idea is once a week I sit down and I set goals for the next week and I review the previous week's goals. And that's called the general tents. And I do that monthly and weekly. And so when I look at this previous week, which was, yes, July 28th, my goal, I wanted to tighten up my stop loss and I wanted to not go break even on trades. And what that means is I was going break even on trades previously, just kind of like getting sketched out and breaking even, and too many of them were winning trades. So I stopped doing that. That's week 2 now. I haven't broken even on any trades. I just let them play out. But here, more specifically, I was using the swings for my stop loss, and I was noticing way too many times it didn't even come down for the swing point. I know that's kind of like what everybody says to do, is use the swings. I don't see it as necessary, at least for me and when I enter. There was a period for about a month where it was wiping me out many times, where price would come back down into, swing up here and then come back down into this zone and then keep going to my target. And that's why I switched to going to stop loss below swings. But I keep seeing it over and over again in my data, where just like this example here, I don't need this giant stop loss. And so this was a trade that I took on Tuesday, I believe, and you can see the stop was probably a little tight. There was this tailless candle here that was kind of bugging me out in this equal lows. So I figured if it was coming for this, it was coming for that. And I didn't want it all the way down in here because that was kind of basically ultimately the same stop loss as I had been running. And so I wanted to tighten up the stop, and it worked fine there. And then I think it took one more trade on Friday. Same kind of thing here. I used roughly 2/3 less of the stop that I would normally use, and TP was hit, and then some. So I feel like I accomplished that. Those 2 goals. And additionally, I did a few more things that really helped me out. So 2 trades, 100% win rate. I tightened my stop loss. 2 things that really helped me out is I created a standard operating procedure to stop hesitating when price hit a level that I was potentially interested in. And let's flip back over here. I'll show you that. Really, just a standard operating procedure was key levels for doing business, right? Pretty easy. I can reduce my mental strain by sitting here going, is price at these levels, right? And then time to do business. Is price at those levels at these times, right? And then confirmation to do business. Are these criteria met? If so, move on to setup detail. Now, this just kind of helped me sort out like my rules and put it into just a step-by-step framework to reduce mental load, which isn't like overly big, but maybe what was bigger for me was the idea of looking at it from these perspectives of these are key levels in which I do business, right? And I started thinking about it from the business perspective. Business, right? I'm going to do business here. Doesn't mean I know I'm going to win. It means I'm interested in doing business here. And this mental shift of business also coincided with, I'm going to grab this little, I'll show it to you here real quick. I can pull it up in Discord. So here in Discord, I also have a psychology tab, right? And I write in all the psychological things I need to look at. When you place a stop loss, assume the money has already left the account is a business expense, right? Big mental shift from, oh, I hope I win this trade to I'm putting out the money and I don't know if this will be an expense or a profit. And the same was true when I did advertising for my other business was, I mean, I would drop thousands on an ad in online ads. Even over the course of a day, I might spend two grand in a day on an ad. I would have no clue if that ad returned anything until the next week. And I would do that day in and day out. So you can imagine how much money I was spending, and I didn't know if I would win. And so for me, that was a helpful kind of perspective shift, is just kind of like letting go of the money once I place the trade. Hydra would always say, I'm ready to lose. And I like that perspective. So going back here, right, the standard operating procedure. Let's take a look at that. It was really helpful. But also one other little note was giving myself this particular freedom to take trades opposite my bias. My daily bias tends to be right. My draw on liquidity tends to be pretty accurate, but that doesn't mean it always is. And sometimes there's winning trades in the opposite direction. And even if I'm right that often, I don't know that. I don't know if it's the day that I'm right or the day that I'm wrong. And so I would tend to freeze up. And in that freezing or in that unknowingness, I feel like it was causing me a lot of stress because I'm like, okay, wait, am I right on my bias? And if I'm right on my bias, is this my level for doing business or is it not? Because if it's actually short, then I'm not at the right level. And my mind would sit here and overanalyze this stuff. And so giving myself the freedom to take trades opposite my bias, but maybe with just a reduced risk, was super helpful. And in both cases this week, the trades were in alignment with my bias, but the decision to enter was effortless. So I noticed a big reduction in stress with my trading this week because of these things. Flipping back here to Discord. So those were some of the good results from the week. Some of the bad results, the only bad result from the week was I slept really poor and I missed a lot of trading days because I do have a rule. If I sleep poorly, I will not trade that day. I'm going to adjust the rule potentially because it keeps happening. Like I missed 3 good days this week. And I looked at the charts and I was like, oh man, I paper traded a couple of them. I think I did take one other trade on like a who cares account. And all of the trades were winners. Where was I going with that? Was that, so I still want to be able to provide myself the ability to trade to some extent. And so I might trade the PM session if I sleep poorly. And I'm also working through the poor sleep personally. Like I've been working on it for a long time. I don't know what's going on where the last couple of weeks, I just been getting hammered with poor sleep, like 2 or 3 nights in a row. And then I'll have a good night, 2 or 3 nights in a row. And then I'll have a good night. And that's really affecting my trading. And so this kind of speaks to how our well-being all around in our life affects our trading, right? Like if I have another rule, if me and my wife have an argument, I will not trade that day. Do it. And it's saved me a lot. And I looked at my life and a lot of other things, whether it was like physical aches and ailments and how they would affect my performance when it came to business and work. And so as much time as I spend in the charts working on things there, I spend probably more time in my personal life reframing my mindset, getting closer to God, getting my body physically fit, fixing a lot of my issues that I had. And I noticed how many less trading days I miss, how many less work days I missed, because I tracked that for several years, even in my other business, where I might miss like 1 or 2 days a week due to a variety of things. And I went through a shitstorm in my life for a couple of years that kind of contributes to that. But nonetheless, I missed 3 trading days this week. And that's somewhat okay in the idea that like as traders, we're allowed to miss days and not every day's a trading day, but I missed 3 good days because I hadn't slept well. I'm proud that I followed my rules, so that's cool. And I guess everybody cares about the P&L, and I'm really trying to ignore it to some extent. But it does matter ultimately. And so here's a screenshot of the account cumulative P&L. Now, what I like about this is this might not look good, but I've seen this a bunch of times before. And so I like it because in my experience, when I start off like backtesting sessions or I start off on a new account, there's always a drawdown period ahead of it, ahead of the green period. For whatever reason, that's just how I function. I don't know. And hopefully that goes away in time, the more experience I get trading, but still. And typically what I've noticed is there was the apex, or I guess would the word be apex if it's at the bottom? I don't know, but point being, usually the chart would bottom out and then work its way back up. I've not had them do a double bottom like this, and I hope there's some kind of divergence down in here, increasing my chances. My goal for this 4-week period, this first month, was to be break even on the account. And I'm slightly under, so I can't technically say I was break even on the account. But in my head, it's close enough that I'm going to count it. And we'll adjust as necessary if that's not the case. But in seeing this curve here, this to me feels like, you know, the start of the curve into the green. Now, I can't know that for certain, but that's just my experience. And what I'm expressing here is like, I have experienced this before, so this doesn't concern me at all, having a red P&L. Like, I expected this, which is why I kind of reframed my whole first month is I just want to be break even because I'm expecting a drawdown. So, and you can see my general's tent. Like, I had these goals, and then I measured, did I accomplish them? And what else did I accomplish? What else went right? What else went wrong that week? Here are the results. So similarly, moving into next week, I'm looking at my goals. I'm going to keep my stop losses tight. I'm still going to focus on not breaking even on any trades. All right, some of the changes I'm going to make is I'm going to aim for 2R. I've kind of been TPing early, which is fine. It wasn't any like rule that I had to TP at any certain point in time. But given the data that I now have and the confidence that I'm building, I'm going to focus on 2R trades. And it's also time to start pushing the risk up. Like the whole point of the first few weeks was just to get, and I recommend this to any new trader. And a lot of what I'm saying is applicable to beginner traders and new traders, but start off with low risk that you don't care about. I was trading 1 and 2 mics because like it's not going to really care if you lose a trade and you win $60. Does it matter? Not a ton. Like look at these wins up here, right? $60, $80. Like for most people, especially for me, like that means nothing. And maybe for some it does, and you need to find out how low can you risk. But I recognize that I'm actually not going to get to my goal if I don't push my boundaries. So I've given myself the time to get into the groove of things, but now it's time to start pushing things up. So I'm going to increase my risk up to 150 per trade, and then I'm going to probably have some dynamic system where I increase the risk depending on whether I win or lose. And I don't have the details of that worked out. But I do need the ability to increase and decrease risk. And then personally, just dialing in sleep. I'm working on this extensively because I don't want to miss any good trading days. And then, like I guess I said, was trade the PM session if needed on those days where I didn't sleep very well the night before. So yeah, I guess that's long enough. That's a recap of week 4. I'm happy. And where I'm going to go in the next week. And I noticed this week of August 4th. So I know where I'm going next week. And my hope is that I'll start seeing some of those green in the P&L curve, start seeing some larger trades, some larger wins, and then just start getting that momentum, that snowball effect going forward. And yeah, if you happen to be listening to this still at this point, I appreciate you. And I would invite you to join me live in the morning. I'm go live at 9:30 Eastern time, roughly, give or take about 10 or 15 minutes, kind of depending on where I'm at in my morning. And I'd love to chat with y'all and just make some new friends while we're all trading.